Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. It has been a while, but we are back, baby. You cannot hold us down. Top rope takes the fallout from WrestleMania, what a WrestleMania was. WrestleMania 41 in the books, and we are not looking back. In fact, we are looking ahead, and boy, we have a lot to talk about. Some exciting stuff going on. But before I do that, I gotta catch up with my good buddy Willie Thrill. Will, how have you been? And overall, how are you feeling after WrestleMania 41 and the Raw after WrestleMania is now in the books?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's been a while. We are back here for Top Rope Takes. We're doing big
Back.
picture stuff here. Sometimes it was tough to get the schedules aligned, but now we're here. We had to come back and talk about WrestleMania, and not only WrestleMania, but the Raw after WrestleMania
Yes.
and what the landscape of WWE could be looking like in the future. Because after this weekend, and especially after Raw, I'm excited for what's to come here in WWE.
Yeah, I thought this Raw after WrestleMania was the best Raw after WrestleMania, dare I say, ever. There's a lot of hype on this episode, and I feel like in the past couple of years, maybe you disagree, it's kind of never lived up to the hype. This one lived up to the hype. There was so much new. There was so much more story that was complete. Like, you know what direction they're going now with all these characters post WrestleMania. I thought it was an incredible episode, and it makes me very excited for this coming Friday night on SmackDown. But, Will, I think if we're going to start anywhere, and there's so much weird places we could start, I think we got to start with the closing segment of Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. At WrestleMania, Saturday night, we saw Seth Rollins defeat Roman Reigns and CM Punk in the triple threat main event of WrestleMania after Paul Heyman turned on his best friend and his tribal chief to align himself with the Visionary. And that alliance was solidified at the end of Monday Night Raw, but it's not a two-person alliance. No, 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 no. This alliance may be just as dangerous as ever because we saw the introduction of the unpredictable badass Braun Breaker joining forces with the Visionary and the Wise Man. Will, there's so much here to talk about, but I want to get your thoughts on not only the ending to Monday Night Raw, but everything involving Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman at WrestleMania and leading up to it.
Yeah, let's start with the build up here because I think going into this main event match on night one for WrestleMania 41, I think a lot of the talk was, do we really want to see this sort of muddied up triple threat between
Mm-hmm.
CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins? I think you and I talked about it when we were last doing this podcast about how it would be, I think, way more interesting to do either Rollins versus Reigns or Punk versus Reigns. Why is this a triple threat? And even towards the buildup, it was kind of like, not really feeling it. What really hooked me into this match was when Seth Rollins started doing those promos with Paul Heyman. And
Yes.
that segment where he almost kicked Paul Heyman with that curb stomp, but then stopped himself and said, "Now you owe me a favor." It kind of got people buzzing, but no one truly. It was sort of almost like the Cena heel turn, where I was like, "Yeah, I could totally see them doing a Cena heel turn," but do we actually believe it would happen? Whereas to see Seth Rollins actually turn into a Paul Heyman guy, even though it was kind of teased during this build and it was definitely speculated upon, it really kind of just blew my mind when I actually saw it unfold
Yeah.
at the main event of WrestleMania. First off, this match off the chart. Definitely for all the things I had to say about this shouldn't have been a triple threat, whatever. This match was great. The
So good.
sequences involved throughout the match, I loved. There was a sequence when I believe Punk hits Rollins with the GTS. Reigns hits Punk with a spear, and then Rollins, as he's getting back up for the GTS, hits Reigns with a curb stomp as almost like kind of a rock, paper, scissors effect between
Yes.
the three. There was the segment when Rollins and Reigns are kind of, or Rollins is trying to get Reigns on his side to like go after CM Punk, do the shield power bomb into the table, but then Roman Reigns hits off Rollins, power bombs Punk into the table, and then power bombs Rollins into the other announcing table. That was incredible. And then I loved when they were trading submissions as well. You had Reigns go for the guillotine, then Punk counter with the Anaconda Vice. You had Rollins hitting the sharpshooter on the ultimate Bret Hart mark, CM Punk. And I love CM Punk. And it was awesome
Yeah.
to see him in this main event coming out to living color with Paul Heyman on his side, almost like a throwback to WrestleMania 29. All of it was just incredible to watch. And I watched this with some friends who are not into wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
They accept they respect it, but they're not like super into it. They're not really following
Yeah.
the product. One of my friends, I've been trying to kind of catch him up on some of the stories, but they were absolutely captivated by the performance of Paul Heyman in the closing moments of this match. They
So good.
absolutely love the drama when he grabbed the chair and he threw it to CM Punk. And because everyone would thought when he got the chair and you see Punk and Roman, that would be similar to Roman and Brock when he would shove it in the middle and you'd have to speculate who is he trying to throw it to. This was directly to CM Punk, no question about it.
Yep.
But then he gets in the ring, and as soon as he got in the ring, I turned to my friends and I go, he's turning on Punk. Because it was like, why else is Heyman getting in the ring? He's turning on Punk. And so he finally hits the low blow, hands the chair to the tribal chief, and I'm like, okay, I understand this swerve. Now, what I wasn't expecting was when he turns Roman to Seth Rollins and goes, "It's yours, my tribal chief." And my friends absolutely died at that. They loved his delivery on that.
Yes. So good.
Every
So
time we'd
good.
go to replay it, they would be like, "It's yours, my tribal chief." So his performance is great in that. And as Roman is about to kind of turn the tables on Rollins with another kind of Shield-esque chair shot, Paul Heyman hits the low blow. This time adding a little pepper to this
Yeah. He
low blow with
really
it.
dramatic with
Right, yeah,
it.
really grinding that thing in there. And then sits down. My friends also had to laugh at him like sitting down all cool and calm
Yeah.
in the corner as Seth continues to wail in chair shots, hits Reigns with the stomp, wins the match, and really it kind of revives the Seth Rollins character that as great as he was during the Punk feud, prior to the Punk feud, I always kind of felt weird about Seth Rollins during promos. I felt like he was kind of doing this over the top shtick, and it really only hit when he was being serious with Punk, how good his promos were and can be if he just has kind of like a good topic to go off of. Him being with Paul Heyman, I am pumped for this duo.
Same.
I think we just got like a little taste of it on Raw, and actually, there's a great taste of it on Pat McAfee. I don't know if you caught the Paul
I
Heyman interview
did.
with
I
Pat
did.
McAfee.
Yes.
Paul Heyman just going out and roasting people in the crowd left and right, just
He still had the bug from
unhinged.
the roast of WrestleMania the night before.
Yeah,
He
no,
was not holding back. He thought he was on Kill Tony.
yeah, it was unbelievable. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of that side of Paul Heyman. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes with Seth Rollins. And yeah, in this main event segment, it didn't seem like they really got much across, but they got enough across
Yeah.
to make me excited. And obviously, CM Punk wants a piece of Seth Rollins, gets thwarted immediately. Roman Reigns comes out, looks like he's going to get the better of Rollins. But that's when Braun Breaker shows up with the hood, similar to the hood that we've seen in previous Bloodline matches with
Yeah.
guys like Solo Sikoa, Jimmy
The Solo
Uso.
Sokoa hoodie.
Yeah. But it's revealed to be Braun Breaker, and Braun almost looks at Seth, and there's a moment when you think, well, what's going to happen here? And it looks like he's about to hit Seth with the spear, but the camera
Mm-hmm.
work was great because then you see he spears Punk instead. Rollins and Breaker together with Heyman. This is absolute money. I think,
Money.
and I still think this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, I agree completely.
I think
I
there's going to be speculation on who's to come. I'm curious to know what you think is coming in the future, but
yeah.
I'm pumped for this new faction, the Dangerous Alliance 2.0 evolution, whatever you want to call it. I'm
Yeah.
pumped for it.
I am so excited. There's so much that you spoke on that I want to touch on. I'll start with the build up again. Like I was right there with you, and I think I was there with a lot of people. Of like this triple threat is probably going to be a great match. I don't think anyone ever doubted that the match was going to be awesome, but I think a lot of us were feeling like, well, a one on one is more impactful, right? We were speculating about CM Punk doing stuff with like Logan Paul or whatever. Now that we know how it has all played out, it makes total sense as to why they went in this direction. And unfortunately, that's a feather in the cap to Triple H and The Rock, who keep saying like, just enjoy the ride that we're taking you on because we know where it's going, right? But it clearly was for the best because the story of the dynamic between Heyman and Rollins and Punk and Roman was so good. I thought the match was great. I thought the Heyman heel turn, I guess you could call it. I don't know if he's been the heel
More of
turn,
a
I guess.
Rollins heel turn than
Yeah,
a
yeah.
Heyman heel turn.
Yes, the Rollins heel turn was so done. I also was watching it at like a unofficial WrestleMania watch party with people who weren't really interested in wrestling. And again, it's that thing of like people who aren't wrestling fans will always love to just like dunk on us wrestling fans because it's like, why do you like this stuff? Why do you like this stuff? And then the minute you show them like the height of drama, like a WrestleMania main event, their eyes are glued to the TV. For an entire group that can't get off their phones for the entire night, not a single person in that room was on their phones while Paul Heyman was going through the drama of the Tribal Chief and Seth Rollins. And I thought that in itself is what makes wrestling fans wrestling fans. That's what we love about it. And it's fun to see other people who aren't in this universe kind of get and appreciate why we're so invested in it. It was a great match. I thought I am so happy. I want this to be the headline of my thoughts. I am truly hoping that this entire Paul Heyman Seth Rollins alliance is the death of the Seth freaking Rollins character, the visionary with the big over the top outfits. It's over. It's played out. I don't need Macho Man Randy Savage 2.0 anymore. I want the architect, the Seth Rollins that we got, similar to in 2015 when he was a heel with the Authority. That is my favorite version of Seth Rollins. I think that's the best version of Seth Rollins, and I'm hoping, well, it won't be a one for one. I'm hoping that's more of the character we're getting now that he's aligned with Paul Heyman. So I'm very excited for that. When it comes to the alliance of Seth Rollins, Paul Heyman, and now Braun Breaker, this is so good. It's awesome. And I know I've heard a lot of comparisons about the new Dangerous Alliance. Frankly, I'm not super familiar with the dynamics of the original Dangerous Alliance. I know Stunning Steve Austin was in there, but I've heard another comparison of this to be Evolution 2.0, which you've alluded to. And to me, that makes so much sense. We know Seth Rollins is Triple H's number one guy. In a company full of Triple H and Paul Heyman guys, I don't think there's an argument to be made that Seth Rollins is Triple H's number one. And how fitting is it for the next evolution, quite literally, of Seth Rollins' character is to become early 2000s Triple H, where instead of Ric Flair, you have Paul Heyman. And yes, Paul Heyman is not a wrestler like Ric Flair was, but the role is pretty much the same. It's the manager, it's the leader, it's the wise man to the leader of the group. People are speculating that Braun Breaker is in this Dave Bautista spot, the powerhouse, the muscle, the guy who's eventually going to be the god, which leads us to believe, will there be another person or potentially two to join this group? And if so, who is it? I personally am under the belief that there will be more people. I think it's going to be a little bit till we find out who it is. I don't think there will be a reveal on the next episode of Monday Night Raw. I think they're going to continue to play with this dynamic of Rollins and Breaker for a little bit. But mark my words, I think this Punk Roman stuff is going to continue. I would not be shocked if Backlash, the main event, was a tag match with Rollins and Breaker versus Punk and Roman. I'm not sure if that's the direction. We'll have to see, but I would not be shocked. But I do think more people are coming. What do you think?
I think so. Here's the thing though. I want to make it clear that I would not be upset if it's just Heyman, Rollins, and Breaker. I think if you just have that be the centerpiece, that is completely okay with me. I think they should actually milk out this trio for a little bit before adding anyone new. Now, and also, I just want to speak on Braun Breaker's involvement in this because I think this is genius. I think this is the exact thing you need to do with Braun Breaker at this point in time in his career to elevate him on that main event level. He's going to have set up programs with CM Punk and Roman Reigns, two of the top stars undeniably in WWE, and he's going to do it next to Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins, who are also two big stars in the WWE. I think this immediately puts him on the map as being in that echelon of a main eventer. So I think it's perfect for Braun Breaker. I think he was the perfect choice. There was no better choice for to be in that role. Now, as far as names, there's one that's been talked about a lot, which we could get into. That being the wife of Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, potentially joining. And I think it would be fun. I think it adds something fun to this dynamic of there being a woman in a faction like this because of the relation with Seth Rollins. And it would be fun to have Paul Heyman be paired up with a woman on television. I don't think that's necessarily happened. She could be the first Paul Heyman girl, or I think the funniest thing I saw was she's the man. She could be the Hey Man.
That's good.
I think that's fun. So I think that would just be an easy dynamic to go into, and not to mention the fact that on this episode of Raw, she turned on her partner, Lyra Valkyria, when she, we could briefly touch this on what happened in night
Go
two.
for it.
Becky Lynch returned, uh, teamed up with Lyra Valkyria after Bayley was injured, couldn't compete. Although I think there was stuff online that said that was always the plan. Bayley
Yeah,
wasn't actually hurt. This was just the plan all along to bring Becky Lynch back. They
yeah,
win the titles, but then lose them immediately the next night on Raw. And Becky Lynch turns on Lyra Valkyria. I think she'll do a feud for the Intercontinental Championship with Lyra Valkyria. Maybe she wins it and she kind of elevates that mid card title. Uh, Whatever. But I think ultimately, sooner than later, she would be the next addition to this because then it's like you don't necessarily have someone getting lost in the shuffle as far as like a new member who you want to elevate because I think you want to establish this group first.
yeah.
And Becky Lynch doesn't need to be established. She's
Right.
already who she is. So she could be added to this group and nothing will be lost. It'll still be like, this is what the group is. And now we've added this element of Becky Lynch now to kind of keep this storyline going now in the women's division, which I think is a good way to kind of spread this faction across the show.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I was not expecting for you to say Becky Lynch in that role. I
Yeah.
think the one thing going for her as to why this makes more sense is because we are living in a 2025 WWE in which kayfabe has completely been murdered, dead, and gone. Everybody knows that Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch are married in real life. So I think for one to turn heel, it makes sense for the other to turn heel and align themselves with each other. I would say the one thing to your pitch that I would maybe skew away from is I don't necessarily think that Becky Lynch needs to be like ringside for all of Seth and Paul's stuff. I think you can keep their story separate. And much like they've done in New Japan in the past, we can all have the understanding of like they are representing this group, but keep them completely separate on the card and come in only when it's necessary. But I don't think Seth and Becky need to be like a power couple in the way the Authority were in in 2015. I think they can kind of do their own things, and there just be a general understanding from the WWE universe that they are aligned under Paul Heyman. I think that's so interesting that you bring Becky into this. I had thought of, I think Carmelo Hayes is being floated around as a guy that potentially could be in a good spot. Just as far as a young up and coming heel with a lot of future in the business, kind of people want to run with the evolution stuff. And so now they feel like, oh, Braun Breaker's Dave Batista, who's Randy Orton. Carmelo Hayes has been floated as a guy potentially in that spot. I wanted to get your thoughts on that because my thought is I think that makes sense on paper, but is Carmelo too small? Like that's a legitimate question. Like,
I I think having a smaller guy is the right move for this faction. I think you definitely want kind of a smaller guy, but with a lot of charisma, and Carmelo definitely fits that bill. There was one name, and I'm gonna call it a top rope take because I don't think it's gonna happen, but there's one name who I think works really well in this faction, who also has history with some of the top guys in WWE, who just arrived on the scene not too long ago in WWE. I'm talking about Ricky Saints. Give me
ooh,
Ricky Saints in this faction. That's why I don't want them to rush this. I think they can establish this.
wow,
You
that's a
give
good one.
Ricky Saints a little more time in NXT to make sure he's ready to go. And then maybe by the summertime, you introduce Ricky Saints as the Randy Orton or kind of the charismatic up
Yeah,
and comer to be with this. He's got history with CM Punk. He's got history with Cody Rhodes that you can kind of dive into. And he's just so charismatic. I think he adds a fun element to this Heyman group. And I'd love to see the dynamic between Paul Heyman and Ricky Saints. So that's my pitch for who I want to see in this faction.
I haven't heard that name yet, and I love that. I think that is so good, and I think it speaks to the health of the industry right now that there's so many other names that you could throw in there. I know like Austin Theory's been floated around online.
No.
You don't want
I'm
it? No.
just gonna say no off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, I listen. I think he's got potential. He needs to get away from Grayson Waller, because that's a death trap. And for what it's worth, Grayson Waller needs to get away from Austin Theory and just do their own thing. But I'm excited for this group regardless. It's going to be fun. The Becky Lynch stuff at WrestleMania was a good moment. They win the titles. It's a WrestleMania moment. And then you just get right into the meat of it the very next night. Becky Lynch Chantil. I thought that was great. I thought Raquel and Liv winning the tag titles for a fourth time was the right call. I'm a little disappointed for Liv Morgan to not get her WrestleMania win there because she's been the MVP of the women's division, in my opinion, this entire year. So kind of a downer for that. And then the other thing I'll say on that is poor Bayley. But at the same time, like this is kind of what a character needs. I think her character legitimately needs real sympathy for people to get behind her. So whether or not this is a shoot or a work or what have you, I think this in the long run is going to be beneficial for the Bailey character. So when she does inevitably make her comeback, there is an actual edge in story and a reason for the crowd to kind of feel sympathetic towards her. I don't know if you saw online, but Mercedes Monet, formerly known as Sasha Banks, her real life best friend, was already kind of putting it out there like, hey, come to Jacksonville, come to Jacksonville. I don't think that's the move for her. I don't think she fits in that universe very well. But I don't know what they have planned for Bailey. I certainly am sorry that this is the direction they wanted to go. But in the long run, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward. So I'm excited to see what they do there.
Yeah, I think just to put a cap on all this, I'm excited to see where this faction goes. And I hope it's a name that we don't expect, that it's someone that we're like, oh my goodness, it's a perfect fit for someone to be in that faction. And as far as Bailey's concerned, I think you're absolutely right. I think doing something like this is going to get her sympathy. There, real quick, I want to touch on this because I don't think it's a part of our rundown, but another person who didn't really have that big of a spot on WrestleMania. He was featured on WrestleMania, but didn't get that much attention. He wasn't in a match specifically, and then cut an awesome promo online. Was a guy Karrion Cross,
Yeah.
who you've been singing the praises of, or yeah, at least you have a friend who really enjoys.
Yeah, my friend really has. My friend's been ahead of the curve. He's been a
Yeah.
Karrion Cross guy for way too long.
Well, if you haven't seen this promo, he
I have.
really ripped into this Logan Paul. The idea of Logan Paul and anyone who comes into WWE who just thinks that they can come in and be a wrestler and think
Yeah.
it's a joke. And I thought it was awesome. Like I think it was the exact thing he needed to put him back on the map. I think that's something we've been waiting for Karrion Cross. And now it seems like he's slowly kind of getting this grassroots kind of movement behind him.
Yeah.
So I think if he could do that, then I also think Bailey with the sympathy can also, she should be able to cut a promo just like that where she just speaks from the heart and people will get behind her.
Yeah, I think that's what Bailey needs. I think Bailey needs to lean into just being less of like a company person. Like obviously, like you can't go, but like she needs to cut a really authentic promo.
But she's she is one of the four horsewomen, and I don't think they want to lose another one of those.
No,
So I think if she really spoke from the heart and gets a positive reaction, I don't think there would be too many repercussions for that. And in fact, I think it would benefit her more than hinder her.
no, I completely agree. This has the makings for her to return and become the biggest babyface that she's been in her career. Real quick on the Karrion Cross stuff, I thought that was a great promo. It reminded me a lot of the Miz's promo and Talking Smack from all those years ago, like that like watershed moment in their career of like speaking from the heart, being you can so clearly passionate about it that it gets the fans behind them. There's so many people in WWE though. I think he'll get more TV time now and get more grassroots support, as you said. But like, there's a ceiling on him. Unfortunately, I can't see him getting to. He'll win like a mid card title or something. But is he ever going to main event WrestleMania? I just don't think so. But good for him because I mean, and also for what it's worth, the content of his promo. I hear you, but also this is WWE. This is not a new thing. Like if you're a celebrity and you have a following, like you're gonna get pushed to the bigger spot over to someone who's been in the indies. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it works. It's box office, it's about money draw, and it's about views and attention. So I hear where Karrion Cross is coming from, but let's be real. This is not a new thing. This is the way WWE has always worked.
I
Um,
think you're right. Just to
yeah,
quickly put an end on that as well. I think you're right about that, but I think what Karrion Cross did in that promo is vocalize how that side feels to the best of his ability. Like I feel like everyone has that feeling about outsiders coming in, but he was able to so well, like he was so well articulated in what he was saying about it. Like you understood every single word he was saying, and you just really felt him in that promo. And I think it was a promo that's like a lot of people will look at and be like, yeah, you know what? I feel that exact same way. He was able to vocalize what a lot of people have felt, but just didn't have the ability to put into words.
yeah. Well, we'll see what happens with him. He's involved in the AJ Styles stuff. He got involved in the main event of WrestleMania. So it's not like he wasn't even on the card. Like
Right.
he's acting like he's not getting any spots whatsoever. Like he was on WrestleMania, which was more than a lot of people can say. So we'll see what happens with Karrion Cross. I want the best for him. Let's move on a little bit because we have a lot to talk about. Will, we have a new world heavyweight champion. Heat, Jey Uso, defeating Gunther by submission to open night one of WrestleMania. He then comes out the following night on Monday Night Raw to a big celebration with Jimmy Uso and a returning Sami Zayn. Listen, I have made no secret. I am not a Jey Uso guy. I can appreciate his connection with the crowd and his cool entrance and his catchphrase that has gotten over. I appreciate that he is not for me. There's a large section of the audience that loves Jey Uso, and I love that for you. I am a Gunther guy. So to see Gunther submit to Jey Uso to lose his world title at WrestleMania, personally, was not my favorite thing to watch on the card. Now, we'll get into a little bit about Gunther's direction from here that I'm enjoying, but I understand that Jey Uso is super over, and that's all you need in this day and age to win the world title. But personally, I hope that this is not a long title reign. What are your thoughts on Jey Uso winning the world title at WrestleMania?
Yeah, I thought it was exactly what you said, a great moment, but we're not crazy about Gunther tapping out. But the thing I would differ from you in that I don't think it affects Gunther one bit. I think him tapping out was fine because ultimately what he does next is going to be so much bigger that it's no one's going to really remember that he tapped out, or it's not going to hinder his character and his presence, the fact that he tapped out in this match. I think you build up a Gunther year round so that something like this happens at WrestleMania where he does lose or he does tap out. And it gives a lot to Jey Uso, who I think had an incredible moment at WrestleMania. I really did enjoy the finish of this match, and he was able to celebrate, and people were having fun. And I love that. But now that we have, and this is going to kind of piggyback off of our last conversation, now that we have someone like Seth Rollins or even Braun Breaker next to Paul Heyman, it's like that title's got to go on one of them.
Yeah,
Like it's got to be her. I think it's going to be Rollins first, and then
I
maybe
agree.
you do the Triple H Batista between Rollins and Braun Breaker, building up to next year's WrestleMania.
Yeah,
Um, but I think that title is getting off Jay sooner than later. I think it was just a moment in time. Uh, but I think what can happen now is because people are expecting it to be a shorter reign, you can kind of play around with that idea for at least the first few title defenses. If you want to have it last a few months before putting it on Rollins,
mm-hmm.
play into the idea that not a lot of people think that Jey Uso is going to hold on to the title for long. Put him up against some big time opponents that he can shockingly defeat and kind of make it a title run that actually means something. It's more than a moment. Because otherwise, if he just loses this thing to Rollins immediately, then it will be just remembered as like kind of a nothing title run.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think in that past. Like we've had so many WrestleManias that have ended with like big baby faces getting crowned as world champion, obviously, but like the only thing that comes to mind is like the Daniel Bryan in WrestleMania 30, but like that didn't last long. Now, granted, that was due to injury, but like
Yeah.
it really did feel like a moment in time. And I think when we look back at WrestleMania 41 and Jey Uso's win, that's what it's going to be. It's like, oh, this wasn't the start of like a legendary run where Jey Uso now becomes like, multi-time world champion. I think very well, if I had to put money on it right now, I think this is the only world title win he wins in his career. So listen, like I said, some of you love Jey Uso, and I love that for you. I personally would rather see a handful of other people as world champion. But listen, you can't deny the popularity, and I am happy for him. What are your thoughts on how Sami Zayn and Jimmy Uso play into his future?
Yeah, real quick before I touch on those two being in the future, I just want to appreciate that WWE did, even if we don't like the guy they chose, they did ride the hot hand.
Yeah,
And I feel like there's been so many times in the past where they've missed out on the striking while the iron's hot. And so you know what? They did it as best as they could. They got the moment, so I'm going to give them credit for that.
agreed.
Because I think if people start to downplay that, then we're not going to see moments like this in the future.
100%.
So I'm definitely for that. As far as Jimmy Uso and Sami Zayn are concerned, I would I'm fine with them being involved with Jey Uso in future programs, but I don't necessarily need to see them with Jey Uso as world heavyweight champion. I'd want to see Jey Uso kind of stand on his own first before kind of realigning. Like I would want to see him stand on his own, realize that he can't do it on his own, if he wants to hold on to the title for long. And then when he loses the title, then try to find Jimmy and Sammy
Yeah.
to then maybe be like, you know what, I can do this if I have the support of my former, like my brothers, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, but I mean, Sami Zayn's an interesting one because you never really know what you could do with Sammy. If you wanted to have an interesting program, you could have Sammy turn on Jay and have a little kind of matchup between them. I think you kind of need faces right now, so it might be kind of jumping the gun to turn Sammy heel. But I wouldn't hate that. I think it would be a
No.
compelling feud, or even if you wanted to do face versus face and just have a compelling matchup there. I think him and Jay could definitely be a title program. I definitely do not need to see Jimmy versus Jay again.
I was
So
just about to say that. I
don't
was
do
like,
that.
Jay and Sammy makes a lot of sense. They'll have a good match. There's a story there, and that feels like a perfect person for Jay to beat and like get some title defenses under his belt. I have negative interest in watching Jimmy and Jay fight for the world title. So please, if anybody in WWE is listening, don't do that. Ever. I don't need to see it. I know you're gonna be tempted. I get it. I get it. Don't do it. Okay, so great stuff from Jey Uso. We're happy for him. Yeah, Jey Uso is a world heavyweight champion. But let's talk about his challenger, or excuse me, the former champion, Gunther, because he taps out at WrestleMania, loses the world title, a much shorter and, quite frankly, a more underwhelming title reign than I think anybody expected when he won that world title at SummerSlam. But right away, we learn what his new direction is, and it's good. It's good. He, on Monday Night Raw, comes out, no entrance, straight out of a commercial break, confronting Michael Cole over comments that he made both at WrestleMania, leading up to WrestleMania, and on the night after on Monday Night Raw about him disparaging the ring general. And Michael Cole stands up for himself, which, side note, I love this new version of Michael Cole, this character that has evolved in, because Michael Cole, during his early years, has just been the geek, right? The punching bag, the bully. Now that he's like got the most WrestleManias called in history under his belt and he's a certified legend, I like that he's like a grown man standing up for himself now, even if he gets choked out. Um, Pat McAfee stands up for him, attacks Gunther, and poor Pat McAfee pays for it because Gunther chokes this man out. And I don't know about you, Will, but I watched that man turn purple. And I don't know if he legitimately passed out, but I do not think that this was I think Gunther really had him. And I think that's kind of what sold it for me. I love this angle. I fully expect this to lead to a Gunther Pat McAfee match. It's been a couple of years since we've seen Pat get into the ring. He brings a lot of eyeballs, which at this day and age in WWE is kind of like their modus operandi right now. Like they're just looking for headlines and clicks. And I think Pat McAfee wrestling Gunther is a good way to do that. So I like this direction for Gunther. Really built him back up as like this monster heel that he needs. He needs to start stacking wins again. So I really enjoyed this angle. It made a lot of sense for me. What did you think?
I really love this angle for a couple reasons. One, I just want to make note of because I agree with you about Michael Cole standing up for himself. I loved when Michael Cole stood up and went, to be fair, Gunther, I wasn't the one who tapped out at WrestleMania. I'm like, holy crap. Like, even if you don't want to make him look like a geek, like,
Yeah,
dude, saying that, I was just like, bro, what are you thinking? Like,
yeah,
that
right.
was like, that's
It had it
insane.
coming now.
So then it starts choking out Michael Cole. I also loved Michael Cole. Like, I don't know if this was an accident or if he was really trying to do this, but during when Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman came out, and it was him and Joe Tessitore on commentary, Michael Cole's like talking about what happened at WrestleMania, and he starts to like cough, and you never hear like Michael Cole cough over the mic.
Yeah,
And Joe is the best. He was like, "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" Like he was just like such a nice dude to Michael Cole, but still like Michael Cole selling the
yep.
choke from that segment. It felt like even if it was just like and he actually just had to cough, it still felt like he
I
was
think he was
selling that
selling it.
choke.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I thought that was great. And then Pat McAfee, for all the like kind of polarizing comments Pat McAfee gets about his commentary, when he laid in like a right to Gunther, this crowd really got behind Pat McAfee. And they were chanting his name. They wanted to see him and Gunther go at it, and then Gunther finally broke free and choked them out. I thought this was great. And the main reason why I really do enjoy this is because there have been over the years multiple times where I thought they were kind of building something with Pat McAfee and an opponent. And it was definitely evident during when this Gunther Jey Uso build when Pat McAfee was doing the yeeting
Mm,
and Gunther would kind of give him a dirty eye. This was happening for like over the course of a year. This was even before
yes.
their like feud. Like whenever they would go after like the Intercontinental Championship, they would Pat McAfee and Gunther had some looks back and forth. So I always thought it was a possibility, but they've done it with so many other people in the past that I kind of just took a step back and was like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, no big deal. I
Mhm.
like the dynamic just on its own anyway. So for him to actually do the choke, and it feels like now we're building up to something with Gunther and Pat McAfee, I'm excited for it. Like you said, it's going to get people talking. There are people who know Pat McAfee who aren't really into WWE who's going to be like, wait, Pat McAfee's getting back in the ring. I got to watch. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think it's great. Pat McAfee did have his show today. No neck brace, like some people thought,
Yeah.
but he did talk about it. He had The Rock on. He was talking about Gunther and everything. So, listen, he's like him, hate him, regardless how you feel about his commentary. He brings eyeballs everywhere he goes, and I think that's a great spot for Gunther because Gunther easily could have gotten lost out of the shuffle, and him tapping out to Jey Uso at WrestleMania easily could have been a huge, like I don't know what the word I'm thinking of, like a bad mark on his legacy and his career. But I think so quickly you move on to something that's like viral, I think is great. I fully expect Gunther to win. I think if Gunther loses again, he's in trouble. But this is great. Listen, if he's not going to be in the world title picture, this is about as mainstream as you can be. So I'm excited for him. Okay, so there's something that we haven't even talked about yet because there's been so much going on in the past couple weeks with the WWE. Speaking of viral moments, John Cena is a 17-time world champion, officially breaking Ric Flair's record for the most world championships ever held by one person across any promotion. John Cena, the undisputed GOAT, in the main event of WrestleMania with the assistance of one Travis Scott. We'll talk about that. Kicks Cody Rhodes in the nuts once again when Cody Rhodes can't hit John Cena with the title. So instead, John Cena has no issue being the bad guy, as Michael Cole says. Knocks Cody Rhodes out with the WWE Championship, covers him 1, 2, 3, and we close WrestleMania 41 with John Cena as your new, undisputed WWE Champion. Before we get into Monday Night Raw, Will, I need to get your thoughts on the build up to WrestleMania and the close of WrestleMania 41, now that John Cena is once again at the top of the mountain.
Yeah, there's so much to kind of dive into because I definitely had a lot of thoughts going into this match about the John Cena heel turn. Because I thought John Cena, when he came out and was doing his heel promos every week on Raw, he was absolutely crushing it. I loved his delivery, his promo against the fans, his promos against Cody. My gosh, when he said, I build empires for billionaires. You just take money from their kids. I was on the floor. Like
Yep.
I was like, I'm ready for this matchup. So I was pumped for this. I love Cena's performance. I love Cody's performance through all this. There were moments when Cody would start to get booed. And when he started to fire up and really speak from the heart, the crowd would instantly turn back and cheer on him. Now, unfortunately, going into this match, there was no chance for Cody to fire up in a promo the
Yeah.
same way he could when he was going face to face with John Cena leading up to WrestleMania. He just had to deliver it in the match. And it's a lot harder to kind of fire up and get that reaction in the middle of a match versus during a promo because you really have to lay it out in the ring. And once he was in this match with John Cena, he kind of got the Cena treatment where he was
Yes.
getting booed. And so they were going back and forth. I thought the match itself, it's interesting because they really leaned into the fact, and this was kind of part of the build as well, that John Cena is not a good wrestler
Yeah.
and that he can't wrestle. And that was part of the build. And I'm saying this specifically to you, Jason, who defends this guy being a good wrestler in the ring. He was not good at all in this role. And I think the part that was intriguing and captivating in the early parts of this match was him doing the like the John Cena stuff, but in a heelish manner. When he hits a
Yes.
shoulder tackle and stands there, and then he hits another shoulder tackle and he stands there. I thought it was definitely fun, but it's something that like throughout, I don't know if it's something I could get used to. It was slow, it was prodding, and then finally Travis Scott's music hits, the song we've heard maybe 50,000 times going into WrestleMania.
If I never
I
hear
feel
that
like
song again in my life, I'll be okay.
it's funny because I was like starting to get hypnotized, I feel like towards the end, and I'm like, you know what? I'm loving this song. Like
What
feed.
they want.
Like every single time, I felt like every time they'd come back from break, the career's more at stake when you're in your prime. Like I know every word by now, and I have only heard the song a few times
Yeah.
prior to that. But now I know like I could do the whole thing
Yeah.
right now. So
Please
I
don't.
guess that's good marketing. Does make him a great heel coming out to that song because people are like, oh, we're sick of this song and we're sick of Travis Scott. So when he comes out in this match, you kind of I think the main thing a lot of wrestling fans are thinking is like, all right, here we go. Like we saw WrestleMania 40 last year. Travis Scott coming out. This is the start to this craziness that's going to be this WrestleMania 41 main event. He comes out. Cody hits a crossroads, gets a 2 count, and then Travis Scott pulls the ref out of the ring. Uh, Travis Scott gets in Cody Rhodes' face, gets hit with a crossroads. Great sell. I love Travis Scott's performance in that. Um, and then after that, it was Cena going for the title shot, like with the championship. Cody caught him. He has the title belt, and he just kind of stops and like contemplates going after Cena. It was what they've built up in the build up to this match. But I just think the execution was a little off as far as
Yeah,
it
it's
made
awkward.
Cody seem like kind of a loser. Like it just seemed kind of lame. Like John Cena said all this horrible stuff and is threatened to ruin wrestling. You have the chance to stop him, even if it means doing something that's deemed bad. I think it would just the hesitation
Yeah.
was not great. And Cena pleading off. I did like Cena pleading off. I thought it was funny. But ultimately, for that to then lead to John Cena hitting him in the nuts and then finally doing what he did to get the win, it almost fell flat for me. Like I didn't believe that that was going to be the finish until it happened.
I thought
But
for sure he was kicking out at two.
yeah, and I thought there was more. I think a lot of people thought that there was a possibility The Rock would come out to try to
Yeah.
stop things in the main event, but I think there's a point to be made. I don't think it justifies what happened, but John Cena did promise to ruin wrestling, and it was a finish that made you be like, oh, like that wasn't fun. That wasn't
Yeah.
like the wrestling I'm into. That was kind of whatever. So maybe there's an argument to be made that that was on purpose. You're supposed to feel that way, but that's just how I feel, and I don't think you're supposed to really feel that way coming off of a big event like WrestleMania, especially for John Cena's 17th title win. I thought him winning the title was the right move. Just the way they executed it wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of.
I agree with pretty much everything you said. Like there's so much for us to talk about here. As far as the match itself goes, it was not a match that I will be rewatching anytime soon. I can tell you that. It was not very good. I think part of it is based on reality, and I think part of it is based on John Cena's current character. I think the reality is John Cena's retiring because he's not who he was once in the ring. And I think this is the pace that he is best at to hide his flaws. Um, and it also just happens to work with his character where he's literally sucking the fun out of his character, right? He anything that ever made John Cena fun, entertaining, or charismatic, or endeared him to those kids, he's deliberately not doing. He's which I think is an interesting character now. I mean, we can just talk about his entrance. It's literally all black except for his name on the screen. He is a completely void of anything that has ever made John Cena aside from his attire. Um, and that goes to the in-ring quality of the match too, which for the main event of WrestleMania, you would hope you would get more out of, but they are committed to the character, and right now his character is quite frankly a minimalist. So in that sense, I get it. It's a little disappointing, but I get it. The whole Travis Scott involvement is a black eye to me. I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to create again viral moments, get people talking. They want desperately WWE to be mainstream again, like it was in the Attitude Era. But when you look back and at this in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and you get such a historic moment of a John Cena winning his 17th world title at the main event of WrestleMania in a heel fashion, right? The same way that we have reverence for Hogan turning heel on Macho Man at Bash at the Beach. Could you imagine if every time we replayed that clip of Hogan turning heel on Macho Man Randy Savage, you had like Ja Rule there. Like it's just like it's such a you're taking away such a massive moment in the history of not only just WWE but the industry, and to have Travis Scott be such a massive protagonist in it is just to me a not a good look. You could have involved him in other ways. I don't think that was the spot for him to get involved in. It's too late now. You can't rewrite history, but I personally am not a fan. I'm watching this with my dad, who's a very much a casual fan, and he's like, "Who? Why is he here? Like this is like because he understands the gravity of the situation and what this means for the in history of the business and the industry. And to have Travis Scott be the reason that John Cena essentially wins his 17th world title just feels so gross to me. I'm not a fan of it. And I get the payoff of this is Travis Scott's going to get in the ring and everyone's going to be talking about it. To me, that's not worth it.
Yeah, because okay, so here's what I'll say about that is I this is something the Travis Scott being involved in this is something that's definitely catered to my generation who grew up listening to Travis Scott. He was so big in the mid 2010s up until I mean, even recently with his album Utopia. So I understand his involvement. Here's where I have a problem with it because I do enjoy Travis Scott's music, and I know a lot of people that are my age and below are really into Travis Scott. When you're not a wrestling fan, but you are a Travis Scott fan, you don't see Travis Scott in WWE and go, "Oh, Travis Scott's in WWE. I need to watch WWE." You
Right.
see a clip online, you go, "Oh, that's funny. Travis Scott's in the WWE ring. That's hilarious." And then you move on with your life. And I know this because I know people in my generation who fall in that camp who had that reaction. And I haven't seen one go, "Travis Scott's in WWE. I got to go check out WWE." They
Right.
just see Travis Scott, they have a laugh, and they move on. So it really, to me, is like you said, it doesn't work for me. It's just and it should work for me because I do like Travis Scott and I like his music, as evidence of the fact that I was hypnotized into liking the stupid
Yeah, yeah.
Fiend song all weekend. I'm singing the whole thing leading up to the main event of WrestleMania because I'm like, oh man, I wonder what Travis Scott's going to do. I wonder what The Rock's going to do. Well, Travis Scott did basically what I expected him to do, and there was no Rock, so it made what Travis Scott do the actual highlight of the match, which it shouldn't have been because it should have been more than that. It should have been about Cena on its own, or it should have been about the Cena Rock Travis Scott
Yes.
trio. It shouldn't have been Cena and Travis Scott taking over the main event. So I think that fell flat. I also wanted to mention a shout out to you because during the build up to WrestleMania, when we first talked about the heel turn from John Cena, and we talked about the final boss, The Rock, you mentioned that The Rock was like Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka.
Mhm.
And it was funny because then John Cena immediately comes out and he is like Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka when he cuts the promo about you get no new music, you get no new entrants, you get nothing. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like we kind of in a weird way, we knew that there would be some sort of Gene Wilder Willy Wonka reference
That's
throughout
awesome.
all
I didn't
this.
even catch
So
that.
we kind of circled back to that
Mm.
ultimately. So big shout out there. I wanted to talk about it if we were able to do that podcast after the first Cena encounter. But I'm glad we were able to talk about it there because I thought that first initial promo was awesome. And I'm still looking forward to what John Cena is doing. If we could quickly touch on what he did on Raw, I think the one thing that I really took away from this that I really like is the John Cena date countdown.
I love it.
I
I
think that
love
is a
it.
great gimmick. I love him having the dates up and being like counting down the time. I think there's some fun things you can do later on with it, but for now, I really enjoy that as part of his character. And I think a lot of people expected Randy Orton to be the first opponent with Backlash being in St. Louis. So I'm glad that they kind of just got it out of the way that, you know what, John Cena, Randy Orton, let's lock it in for Backlash. So I'm looking forward to that match. I don't think it had to be a big time match because I think the real intrigue of WWE is the Rollins Heyman stuff right now. So I think they can kind of use this as the first title defense to kind of get it out of the way, have a fun little historical match with Cena and Orton. And then after that, we can kind of get into the nitty gritty of some big opponents that John Cena is going to have that really are more captivating, in my opinion.
For sure. I mean, I would still consider Randy Orton a big opponent, but like this is obviously a
Well,
match
yeah.
that had to happen.
it was like, to me, he's a big opponent for sure. And I think there's a lot of historical significance, but I think there's a lot more that I'm interested in as far as like a storyline between his future opponents. Like I'm interested in him and Punk and that story more
Yeah.
so than that. I think him and Drew McIntyre could be like an intriguing storyline if they tell that whole thing right. There's also plenty of people from Cena's past that you can pull to try to get the title off of him that I'm definitely intrigued about. Uh, so we'll see. But
I
I think Orton is kind of the one that's like it's happened a billion times. I think we should just have our final send off with Cena Orton. They haven't, in my opinion, especially in like the last 10 years, haven't had that much of a compelling reason to fight each other. So I'm kind of lukewarm on it. I think it'll be a fun way. I think it has to happen, but I'm not like dying
yeah.
to see this match.
I completely get what you're saying. Like this entire Cena run is a nostalgia act, but this match specifically between Cena and Orton doesn't push any really story forward. It's simply for, hey, remember these guys? They're all-time rivals. We're going to do it once and then move on again. And the fact that Backlash is in St. Louis, it makes a total sense. The match itself is not going to be great. It's going to be very similar to what we saw at the main event of WrestleMania between Cena and Cody, because again, I think it speaks more to Cena than Randy and Cena's character. It's going to be very slow. It's going to be very meat and potatoes. You're not getting any oh my god moments out of this. I think it's going to be a pretty straightforward match. Real quick, I want to touch on this because I didn't get a chance to. The crowd has inadvertently played so into the hand of John Cena's character throughout this run with him and Cody that it's actually great because Cena's whole justification for turning heel is that for 25 years he gave them everything and they shat on him. And they are doing the exact same thing to Cody. And Cena even addresses it on Monday Night Raw. He's like, "You this is the guy we had on our shoulders last year at WrestleMania because he finished the story. And now you're booing him out of the building for me, who you've been booing for 25 years." And I think that is great. I think it's gonna again justify a future Cody Rhodes heel turn. I thought though his hesitation in the main event of WrestleMania made him look incredibly weak. Um, I think they would have really gotten behind him if he actually did hit him with the title, even if it didn't, end the match. That is what really would have gotten the crowd behind him because the crowd loves an anti-hero. So I thought that was a mistake actually. But I'm really glad Cena pointed it out because the crowd has been just as big of a character in the latter stages of this buildup and post WrestleMania in the Cena Cody story than Cena and Cody themselves. Um, so let's talk. So Randy Orton, John Cena, Backlash in May in St. Louis. It's going to be great. We got to talk about one more thing with Randy Orton, and that is his WrestleMania match, because I need to get your thoughts on this. We know he was originally scheduled to fight Kevin Owens. He was going to punt Kevin Owens. It was going to be a great moment. Kevin Owens is seemingly legitimately has a neck injury that could keep him out of action for a year, if not more. We may never see Kevin Owens wrestle again. Who knows? But instead, we get an open challenge at WrestleMania. Randy Orton puts it out there, and who else does he face but the current TNA World Heavyweight Champion, Joe Hendry? Again, I was watching this with my dad, who has no idea who Joe Hendry is, so he was not a fan. I thought it was the perfect opponent for Randy Orton because it was Randy Orton's 20th WrestleMania. He was going to win. Whoever you were going to put in there, they were going to lose to Randy Orton. There was a lot of speculation about guys you could put in there. Obafemi, Rusev, who we'll talk about in a minute. Anyone else, you name them.
Jeff
But those
Cobb.
guys, Jeff Cobb, you can't put them in that spot and then immediately lose. This was the perfect spot for Joe Hendry. A massive reaction for the WrestleMania crowd. It really, if you weren't familiar with him before, all WWE fans, casual and super fan, know who Joe Hendry is now. I thought this was perfect. What were your thoughts on Joe Hendry answering Randy Orton's open challenge?
I completely agree with you. I think it was the perfect opponent for him because I think this match, no matter who his opponent was, didn't need to go long. And I think Joe Hendry was the perfect opponent to have with Randy Orton if you wanted to have a short but fun match. You get the moment, you get the entrance. I think you get the visual of Joe Hendry being at WrestleMania, which is super important for Joe Hendry. And then to do all of his fun spots. I absolutely loved, and it was one of my favorite parts of WrestleMania when he does the spin around, smile into the camera, immediately into the RKO. There is a great picture online. I took a screenshot of it. Maybe I can send it to you, but it's Randy Orton hitting the RKO, but it's taken at the perfect moment where he's hitting the RKO, but the Jumbotron still has Joe Hendry smiling
Oh,
on it
nice.
in the background. So it's like delayed slightly. So you just see Joe Hendry smiling on a Jumbotron while he's getting RKO'd by Randy Orton. I absolutely love that. I thought he did great in the moment. It didn't need to be like some
No,
sort of showcase where he has a close match with Randy Orton. He had his moment. I think people in the crowd are gonna remember just the entrance and the feeling they got when they heard the music. So I think it was the best possible scenario. Like you said, Randy Orton was going to win. So don't put him in there with someone that you are trying to build up in the future. Put him in there with, a guy who can have 5 minutes in a match, but still make it the best 5 minutes possible. And I think Joe Hendry was the perfect person for that. And anyone online who's complaining that they squashed the current TNA champion, pump the brakes.
no,
Like
come on.
they chose Joe Hendry as their champion for a reason. If Joe Hendry didn't have this title, he would still be the guy they put out there at WrestleMania. So I
100%.
think TNA perfectly executed this by having the TNA title on around his waist. So therefore, not only is Joe Hendry getting over, but TNA is getting over as a promotion. We saw the TNA World Championship at WrestleMania. You could not have pictured that even 5 years ago.
Yeah. And for people who like Joe Hendry and maybe didn't know, maybe they thought he was an NXT guy. They now know he's a TNA guy. So tune into TNA. So it worked. It was a great moment. I loved it. Real quick shout out. I loved Randy Orton's gear for WrestleMania, a clear tribute to his debut gear that he had in 2002. I thought that was a really nice touch for the super fans who've been watching for that long. We had a couple other WrestleMania moments I want to talk about, starting with Dominic Mysterio winning the Intercontinental Championship in a fatal four-way match over Penta, Braun Breaker, and Finn Balor. Dominic Mysterio gets the win by pinning his Judgment Day cohort Finn Balor. He then defends the title the very next night, defeating Penta in a quick but good match. They are telling the story here of Finn Balor trying to pretend like he's okay with Dominic Mysterio winning the Intercontinental Championship, even though he's not. I thought this was great. Let's talk about the cheers Dominic Mysterio is getting in. He's officially entering his Latino heat role as a very over babyface. I like what Dominic Mysterio is doing. I thought he was winning I thought it was a right call for him to win. My only complaint, Will, what the hell is Finn Balor doing with his gear and his music? What is that? That is my biggest complaint of the entire match. Finn, hard reset. I have so much to say about Finn and how stupid he looks. But let's focus on Dominic Mysterio. What are your thoughts?
I'm loving Dominic Mysterio. I do think it was a case of like the WrestleMania traveling crowd where they're kind of ahead of the curve with stuff like that. Uh, as far as cheering Dominic Mysterio, I think it'll be a few weeks before I can fully kind of set in on like Dominic Mysterio turning babyface because I do think it's a case of like the kind of ironic cheers
Yes.
now where like initially it was like we're gonna play along, we hate this guy, but now it's been so many years and they've just come to appreciate Dom as a wrestler and a character. People are really starting to enjoy him, and so I think he'll still be in that heel role, but we'll see if this carries over into future crowds where they start to cheer Dominic Mysterio and how WWE takes that into account.
Mm.
We also saw the return last night of JD McDonough. He's back into this fold, and he seemed to be on the side of the Judgment Day, really trying to talk Finn into kind of getting on the same page with them. And Finn seemed to be okay at the time, but I think it's not too long before Finn Balor is out of there. And I do think he needs a hard reset, but more than a hard reset, I think he just needs to take time off. I think absence makes the heart grow fonder. And in a
Yeah.
case with someone like Finn Balor, I think it only benefits him if he just kind of steps away from a bit. It's a crowded scene right now in WWE. He kind of gets lost in the shuffle. I would try to, give him some time off. And then when the time is right and he needs to fit back in, then you can put him in a program.
I agree completely. I think, especially because if he doesn't take time off, he's just going to continue losing because there's so many other people that they're pushing right now, and it doesn't do him any good. The one thing that we haven't talked about is they've been teasing for a while that they might add a new member to Judgment Day. So, does that happen before Finn leaves? Does Finn leaving make room for someone to come in? I'm interested to see how that story continues to play out in the coming weeks. And then I could see potentially Finn Balor coming back with a stable of his own to take on Dominic's group or something like that. So there's a lot of layers going on with the Judgment Day. And with Dominic Mysterio winning the Intercontinental Championship, it has made the Judgment Day feel relevant again for the first time since Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley have left.
Yeah, I think I like this group here. I'm glad that Liv and Raquel won the titles back, so you kind of have this visual of Liv and Raquel with tag titles. You have Dom with the Intercontinental Championship, and then you got the lackeys and JD McDonough and Carlito. And it kind of does leave Finn Balor to kind of take a step back and be like, where do I fit into this equation? Maybe it'll result in him getting kind of like a world title match against Jey Uso. I could see them easily, as much as I really am not interested in that, I could see them doing that just as like an easy win for Jey Uso before Judgment Day finally decides to kick out Finn Balor, and then you could do a hard reset with Finn.
Yeah, I agree. A couple other things to talk about from WrestleMania. We had Io Sky retain the World Heavyweight Championship in a triple threat match over Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley. For my money, Will, I thought this was the best match across both the nights of WrestleMania. I thought this was awesome. I did think Io retaining was a bit surprising, but I'm sure they have plans for Bianca and Rhea, and keeping the world title on Io prevents her from getting lost in the shuffle. So, all in all, I think it's the right call. I thought this was a great match. The following night on Raw, we see Io Sky go one-on-one with the NXT Women's Champion Stephanie Bacquer. They have a great match, and then they are interrupted by Rhea Ripley and Julia, also from NXT. What are your thoughts on their WrestleMania match and what we saw from Raw?
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought this was probably the best match of the weekend. It's kind of up there with the main event of night one. I do like the drama of night one's main event, just on its own. But if we're talking bell to bell, I think the opener of night two with Io, Bianca, and Rhea Ripley was definitely the best match of the weekend. It's definitely the best match of night two by far. I don't think it's
Yeah,
even close. Um, really enjoyed that match and the dynamic between those three. And I'm glad Io got the win. I think it was the right winner for that situation. It really elevated her for her to not only beat Bianca and Rhea, but pinning Bianca to officially like end that WrestleMania streak talk that they were kind of building up and alluding to. So big moment for her. Then we had Stephanie Vaquer come out on Monday. I don't see this as like a call up for Stephanie back here, but I do think it was a nice showcase match for her. I think
mm-hmm.
this was more so a call up for Roxanne and Julia.
Oh yes.
Uh, I definitely Roxanne. I could go. I can't see Roxanne staying in NXT much longer. I think I know she has a match with Stephanie Vaquer, but I think she's going to be on the main roster, and I think Julia just fits into this situation perfectly with Io Sky being the champion. I'd love to see Julia be kind of a regular on Monday Night Raw from here on out. So I'm looking for. I think Raw now has like a pretty stacked women's division with the call ups of Julia and Roxanne. Now that you have Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, and I'm not sure if they're going to bring Bianca back to SmackDown, but you still have Liv and Raquel there. You have Becky Lynch back in the fold, so I'm really enjoying this. I think Raw's got a lot of new star power in the women's division, which I think was much needed, and I'm looking forward to see what's happening next.
I agree with you. I think Julia is better suited for the main roster because they're clearly going with Vaquer as the head of the NXT women's division, and that women's division is so deep that I think Julia just gets lost in the shuffle over there. I do think there is something to be said with her and a partnership between her and Io Sky. They have that tie of Japan and going, through that whole promotion. I'm interested to see how Damage Control, the rest of Damage Control, plays into this. Asuka, Kairi Sane, Dakota Kai. I'm sure there's a story there they can tell. That division is super deep, like you said. I think Bianca not being on Raw last night proves that she will be back on SmackDown and continuing her stuff with Jade and Naomi over there. It's a great time for the women's division across all pro wrestling. So great match from Io, great moment for them on Raw. I'm happy for them. Roxanne, again, once she finishes her match with Back she'll be on the main roster full time. Hopefully they do something with her. Maybe that's where Bayley comes back. So there's a lot of wheels in motion across the entire industry with women's wrestling, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah, and I do think it was interesting because I thought when Julia was initially coming out that it would be some sort of deal where she would kind of be with Io Sky, but I guess it's a weird partnership between Julia and Roxanne because they seem to be on the same page when they were attacking Stephanie Vaquer and Io Sky after their match, or during well, to cause the disqualification.
Yes.
And so I'm curious to see how that unfolds. I think it is kind of an interesting situation, but I do think there will be a time sometime maybe even this year or down the line where we see Io, Julia, Asuka, Kyrie as a faction. You can even throw Dakota Kai in there, but I
Yeah.
think we get the full Damage Control faction.
Yeah. I would love to see it. It makes good use to get more people on TV. I think that's awesome. One of the other things I want to talk about from Monday Night Raw, we saw the New Day have a match after winning the tag team championships at WrestleMania over War Raiders. And that was interrupted by a returning Rusev. Thoughts on New Day winning the titles and Rusev back on your TV in WWE?
New Day winning the titles is pretty underwhelming. I thought if they were going to have a WrestleMania match, I was at least expecting some sort of Big E involvement, but I think we're long past that point at this time. So, it was fine. I thought this spot would have been better for the SmackDown tag team titles,
Yeah.
versus these titles, but it was good to see the New Day finally get the gold, as heels. As far as Rusev's concerned, I'm so mad that they Def Rebelled him. I love the OG Rusev
Same.
song. Like it's just so simple but effective. But I love Rusev and I think he's an awesome wrestler and I'm excited to see him in WWE, but it's a stacked roster.
Yes.
And I'm just concerned about where he's going to fall, especially with him just attacking the tag team division. Like, what does this
Yeah.
mean? Now, I did see something interesting. Did you catch this when he did his attack?
No.
He attacked Alpha Academy, and who was distressed on the outside was one Maxine Dupree.
Right.
What if we put Maxine Dupree in the Lana gear? We have her all tidied up, and we have her as the manager of Rusev. I think I could get behind that.
Interesting. I don't think it's very likely because I think I read a report that Lana signed a Legends contract with WWE. So I don't think they're looking for a new
No,
Lana.
but they're not. What are they going to put Lana and Rusev together?
Yeah, they're back together in real life.
Are they?
Yeah,
I thought they were divorced.
it's complicated, but
Dude, I
I'm
don't know, man.
I'm fairly certain they're back together.
All right, let me look this up.
It's an interesting concept in theory, but I think we are heading toward a Rusev and Lana versus Otis and Maxine storyline. Um, But yeah, I mean, listen, Lana and Rusev together are money, so I kind of hope that's not the case. For what it's worth, you mentioned Maxine
What
Dupree.
happened? I'm
A
sorry.
lot of
I'm
mess.
so behind.
It's fine. It's okay. This is definitely not something that I think you should be up on. The fact that I am, I think, is a little concerning on my
Okay.
part. Um, can you confirm they're back together?
I think so. I mean, they're calling him his wife. Man. Oh, okay. Here we go. Here we go. This was last month. So yeah, I haven't really been capping it. Former AEW stars. This is how long ago
Yeah, Miro
so,
and
Miro and CJ Perry renew vows following separation.
yes, so they're back
Maybe I did
together.
read this. So they renewed their vows. They were
Yes,
separated. I
yeah,
don't know, man. Sure, you can put them back together, I guess.
yeah. But for what it's worth,
I was so psyched for that theory that I had
yeah.
because I thought they were separated. I was like, oh man, it would be so cool if that happened.
I'll tell
But
you what, though. You know what I'm excited for? That promo when Maxine brings it up. That's gonna be
oh yeah, I
that
could
pop.
see. You know, that would be a fun little mix tag. Rusev and Lana versus Otis, and Maxine Dupree. I
Yeah,
could get down with that.
yeah. Is this? Oh, I think this makes so much more sense now because I saw this on Twitter and I was like, why are you bringing this up? The former Aiden English was like, by the way, I'm a free agent.
Okay.
So
Well,
pretend,
he's a commentator on TNA. So even if he wasn't a free agent,
if
he would
WWE
still
wants to
have a
bring him
pull.
back to
Yeah,
pair with Rusev, he's doing it.
he's got it. So that would be fun. I love Aiden English. I think he'd be great to put him back in. But I think they're kind of avoiding the Rusev Day stuff for now. I think it'll be a fun reunion
It's
down the
inevitable.
line. Well,
Yeah,
people are going to chant Rusev Day, but I think they're going to try to make Rusev like this badass heel. And
yeah,
then once they realize that Rusev is better suited as like a badass heel, but with a little comedy edge to him,
yeah.
then they'll bring back the Rusev Day.
I think part of the negotiations or conversation with Rusev had to be like, listen, man, we'll bring you back, but it's a stacked roster. You're not, we'll give you maybe a couple big, programs, but like, I think he's more in line for a Carlito role than he is like a world championship role right now. Like, I think he will eventually fall into that comedy character. I don't see him being that far up the card at any point. I don't know. Maybe you disagree.
Yeah, no, it's just tough.
Yeah.
It really is tough. I would love to see let's get Rusev versus Penta versus Ray Phoenix versus Andrade
Yeah.
versus Ricky Starks versus Ethan Page for the
Hey,
AEW WWE
there
Championship.
you go. They're building their whole promotion just on that.
Yeah.
So good to see Rusev back on my screen. TBD on what they do with him. All right. Let's wrap this up real quick with just some real quick final thoughts on anything we may have missed from WrestleMania. Let's start with Logan Paul and AJ Styles. We mentioned this earlier with the whole Karrion Kross stuff. Logan Paul gets the win when one of his goons tries to hand him brass knuckles. That's stopped. Karrion Kross tries to offer it to AJ. AJ is the righteous good guy and doesn't take it. And then he gets hit with Logan Paul's new finisher, the pulverizer, which looks great, by the way. Logan Paul picks up the win, and he was not at Raw, if I'm correct. So we'll see where they go with Logan Paul. But I thought this was a solid showing. Kind of wanted AJ to win because I thought they could do more with AJ going forward. But I guess he's just at the point of his career where he's going to be just not a jobber, but he's putting people over, I guess, is just his whole role.
This match pissed me off. And you know why? You know why, Jason? There's only
Why?
one thing that pissed me off about this. No prime bottle spot. It is my
But
favorite thing of WrestleMania for Logan Paul
you're
to
going
come
to say you
out with
hate
the prime
drones.
bottle
Yeah.
and come out there be like, who's under the prime bottle? Who's under the prime bottle? It was
Yeah.
KSI. It was Isho Speed. I was like, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Kai Cenat? Is it going to be
Mm.
another Twitch streamer that I would never? It's going to be Ludwig. Who knows? I don't know who is under this prime bottle. And then he doesn't come out with one. I'm like, oh, they're playing it smart. He's not coming out with the prime bottle initially, but then the prime bottle is going to come walking out
Mm.
later, and then they're going to do the reveal so that people. And then the match just ended, and
Yeah.
I was just like, it was a good match. I think the drone
It's all
stuff
right.
was like a neat idea, but I'm sitting there. I want to see the freaking prime bottle at WrestleMania. That's what you're here for, Logan. So this was -5 stars. Probably the worst part of WrestleMania. No prime bottle during the Logan Paul match.
I love it. Maybe it'll be sponsored by Prime by the end of this. Who knows? You heard it here, folks. I thought it was fine. Um, some other stuff that happened at WrestleMania. We had Jade beat Naomi. This was a fine match for what it was. Jade got the win, much deserved. So hopefully I think she's going to move on to bigger stuff. I would not be surprised if she's the number one contender for the world title after this. Uh, it was good. It was the first time, I believe, that in WrestleMania history we had a one-on-one match between women for no title. So progress.
Yeah, it was cool. I thought the only thing I took away from the match was that campy entrance that Jade Cargill had, where it was like
Yeah.
the weather guy coming in and being like, "We're here in Las Vegas. Oh wait, there's some rain. There's some wind. It's hailing." Yeah, and then the storm is coming.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think it was good for Jade to get a win at WrestleMania, but I think we could kind of move past this
I
and
think they're
kind of
going
bring
to.
her to that next level.
I think there's going to be more between her and Bianca. I think Bianca is going to continue with this program moving forward.
Yeah.
Sticking with the women here, we had Tiffany Stratton retain the WWE Women's Championship over Charlotte Flair. Thank God this was the right call and it worked. What a physical match. I mean, people thought that Tiffany Stratton lost a tooth or chipped a tooth. I don't know if we've seen that confirmed or not yet. She's definitely banged up. I thought this was a good match, but Tiffany winning was the right call. Solid entrance, too.
Yeah, I didn't think this was a good match at all. I thought it was kind of sloppy. But Tiffany Stratton got the win, so I'm not too upset about it. I think that was the right choice. I think Charlotte, I don't know
She needs
about,
to
I
go
don't
away
know what
again.
to do. I don't know what to do with Charlotte. So I think she is great, but during this build, I think a lot of people soured on her because of her performance in the ring and kind of have this bad notion about Charlotte now. Not just from like, oh, we love to boo Charlotte because she's a heel and we don't want to see her win. It's more like, no, we boo Charlotte because we just don't like her and we would prefer if we just don't see her on our television.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with her. It's a really good point. I think because really her only role at this point is to put other people over. She's gotta do something. So I don't know. It's a shame because she just came back. She's not going anywhere anytime soon. After this, we had Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest, and I thought this match blew away my expectations. The Sin City Street Fight. It was so good. And it was one of the matches that everybody leading up to it was like, we literally do not care. And I dare I say, I think it was probably either the first or second best match on that night. It was so good. I had somebody on Pat McAfee's show was calling it like a top three WrestleMania match of all time. They need to get their heads checked, but it was a good match. And Drew winning, I thought was the right call too, because he's so much more popular than Damian Priest. Damian Priest needs a reset too. I think maybe you turn him heel, honestly, at this point. Like the babyface stuff isn't working. I don't know what you do with him, but what did you think about the match?
Yeah, I thought this match was really good. Same point as you. I This was my least anticipated match going into WrestleMania weekend, and I thought it came out as one of the better matches of WrestleMania weekend. I probably put it two on that night, next to the opener. I still enjoyed the opener more with the women, the triple
Yeah,
threat. But it had to follow that, and it did as good of a job as you could following uh, a great match like that. I thought these two were great. I just loved these two brawling at one each other. The spots with the steel steps I thought were great. The utilization of that, and I enjoy Drew, and I enjoy what's to come for Drew. I think Drew can easily slot back into that main event scene
yes.
as kind of like a top tier heel. I'm curious to see where he ends up. I'm I don't want to say this because I don't think he fits the role too well, but I could see him kind of fitting into that faction a little bit if they wanted to. He's got the
Interesting.
justification for it. And so I think it'd be interesting to see him aligned with Rollins and Breaker. But I think he's just as good on his own. And I think maybe you keep him away just to have him as a separate act on his own. I
Yeah.
don't think he necessarily needs it. I think it would be definitely an entertaining route to take his character, but I think you want to reserve that spot for like an up and comer. But other than that, good match. And I never know what to do with Damian Priest. I think
Yeah.
Damian Priest kind of needs that a big moment, that big stepping stone, kind of either promo or match
Mhm.
that really puts him on the map.
Yeah. No, I agree. If I had to guess, now we're recording this before Friday Night SmackDown, but if I had to guess, I would say that Drew McIntyre will probably start a program with Cody Rhodes this week. If I, you know, because I don't think Cody and Cena's obviously moved on. You got to do something with Cody. So either Cody Rhodes is taking a break, or I think it's him and Drew.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this when we were breaking down Cena versus Cody. I really hope Cody goes away for a little bit. I think he
Mm-hmm.
needs a reset as well, just from the eyes of the fans. I think with the fans starting to boo him, I think he needs to just kind of
Yeah.
take a step back and kind of let Cena do his thing. If they do want to do him and Drew, I guess that's fine, but I think you kind of step away. I think there's plenty of people who I expect to be on SmackDown who you could throw in a program with against Drew McIntyre if we want to cover this. Do you have any ideas for who might show up on SmackDown?
Like from a debut or return.
Debut or return, yeah.
It's a good question. I haven't really thought about it, to be honest with you. I think if we're looking at NXT, certainly I think Ethan Page is a name you could talk about as far as somebody who's got main roster, not experience, but he's been doing it for a while. He doesn't really need NXT. He's kind of moved on from there. He's the first one I've thought about there. Um, yeah, he's the only one off the top of my head. Why? Who are you thinking?
Okay. I got a couple names. If you want to go the NXT route, I think Trick Williams with Carmelo Hayes being on SmackDown
Mm,
is an easy one to kind of throw in there. You also have Fatu as a heel US champ, which we didn't bring up yet, but Jacob Fatu is the US champion, beat LA Knight. Another great match
yeah,
on night one. I thought that was the second best match on night one
he's a
outside
future
of
world
the
champion,
triple threat.
babyface.
Great match between him and LA Knight. I'm looking forward to this run with Jacob Fatu, but I could see Trick Williams slotting into like a US title picture or a feud with Carmelo Hayes. Aleister Black, they've been teasing.
I
I
think
wouldn't
he's
mind
debuting on
seeing
Friday. I
I
think there was
think he's debuting on Friday. I wouldn't mind him being in a feud with Drew to start off. Let's start off hot, like him and Drew, kind of big top billing for Black. And I also think there's history behind that because in 2020, there was a backstage talks when Paul Heyman was running Raw. Who do they want to go up against Brock Lesnar at that WrestleMania? And it was between Drew McIntyre and Aleister Black. They wanted to really elevate someone. They went with Drew McIntyre. So, and think about how the different paths they traveled since. So I think that would be a fun match for Aleister Black to debut and come back in. I also have heard rumors about Jeff Cobb. I don't know if they want to start doing video packages before
mm,
debuting him or if they want to launch him right to the scene, but I could see that. And I don't know what the status is for his health, but I'd love to see Ilya Dragunov back. and
Yeah.
do something on SmackDown. So those are some names that I'm looking forward to seeing either debut and return on SmackDown, or potentially for the next coming months kind of make their way back into the fold in WWE. I think some of those names can match up against Drew, but overall, that's kind of what I envisioned for WWE. I could also see Alistair and Damian Priest if they want to do
That
that.
that feels right to me.
Yeah.
I agree with all those names. I think Aleister Black was actually like concrete. Like we saw that he's debuting on Friday through the vignettes. They never said, "Hey, Aleister Black's debuting," but like the smoke vignette literally had the date. Like what I think it's
Yeah.
425 or something like that.
Yeah.
So he could be. Yeah, I think him and Damian Priest makes a lot of sense. I think they will debut him as a heel. If I had to guess, how funny would it be if his return to WWE was against the man that he fought when his return on his debut in AEW, Cody Rhodes.
I would love that. And I think it would be
You just
great.
need
It
Arn
would actually,
Anderson.
if they want to do that exact angle where like Cody, if they want to give Cody some time off, they could have Aleister Black squash Cody, and then we don't see Cody for a while, and then he comes back and tries to kind of get revenge
Yeah.
on Aleister Black. I think that would be a little fun homage there, but I think that might be too much too soon for Aleister Black in his return. But
Yeah.
hey, if you want to catapult the guy, that's the way to do it.
I like Aleister Black and Damian Priest. My only concern would be Aleister Black's clearly going to win that program, and then Damian Priest is just like a dead man walking. So I think Damian Priest really needs somebody he can beat lower on the card. Hopefully not like a Santos Escobar, like somebody hopefully with like a little bit more meat to them. Um, I think he might go up against Jacob Fod too. I don't know. There's so many possibilities. We're gonna have
That
to wait and see what they
the
do on SmackDown.
the thing about Damian Priest is if you put him up against like either an upper mid carder or a top name, he's gonna lose at this
Right.
point. And it's just because of who he is. So I don't mind him losing in these feuds if it means he's gonna get a hard reset at some point. Like he's
Yeah.
gonna have to change up his character or something. So I say he continues to get into these feuds where he's in the conversation with big names, but he doesn't end up winning the feud, and then that can build into his next incarnation of whoever he becomes in WWE.
Yeah. Put him against like Andrade. They'll have good matches. You can beat Andrade. He's on his way out, right? Um, all right. Well, again, so much to talk about this week. It was a hell of a WrestleMania. Let's wrap this up. Real quick, you mentioned it earlier, but I just need to say it. Jacob Fatu is a future world heavyweight champion. I'm so glad they put the title on him. LA Knight will be have no shortage of things to do. They'll figure out something to do with him, but putting the rocket to Jacob Fatu was the right call. Excited for his future. All in all, Will, what did you think of this two-night WrestleMania 41 as a whole?
It's an interesting one. I think only time will tell how people perceive this WrestleMania because I don't think it was as good as 40 or even 39. I
Yeah,
think it fell short of those two. I still enjoyed WrestleMania as I always do, but I think it was the weird imbalance of having a strong night one main event on a weak undercard and a strong undercard on night two in a weak main event that kind of made things a little weird for me. But I think because the Raw after WrestleMania was so strong and the stuff they set up within that WrestleMania and the Raw after WrestleMania going forward was so like captivating. I think if we look back a year from now and see all the stuff that has come from this year's WrestleMania, we'll look back and say this was a great stepping stone for WWE to get us into the next era.
yeah, if WrestleMania 40 was the end of Cody Rhodes' story, this definitely felt like the beginning of another story, a transitional WrestleMania to something bigger. Right now, if I had to call it, I think it's mid. I think you're going to remember the moment of Cena's world title and the moment of Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins and that main event of night one. But other than that, I don't think this WrestleMania had a ton of rewatch value. That's unfortunate, but I think like I said, I think it'll be best known for a transitional WrestleMania that gets us to a bigger storybook ending in the coming year. So, alrighty. Well, that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us. We will have more content coming up as we are on the road to Backlash now. Again, so much stuff was already set up for us on this Monday Night Raw. I'm sure we'll have more set up on Friday Night SmackDown. But for now, that's going to be it. Will, thank you so much for joining me. Always a pleasure, sir. And we're on the road to WrestleMania 42.
Let's go.
Let's go. All right. So take care, everybody. Thank you so much. And we will see you next time.
Peace.